I've started building the gasifier. I've got a bundle of discs that I previously had plasma cut out for this very job, and had those cut at the old house, and fortunately they're still acceptable to use. This is the burn tube for the gasifier. It's an old carbon dioxide bottle that I cut up. This one here is an argon bottle, very much the same, but I'm not going to use this one. But I thought I'd show you how, if I never get this magnet off, how I cut a square end on these magnet. So yeah, I get a long piece of paper and wrap it round until the ends all line up nice and square on the end, and then I stick a strong magnet on, and then I get the marker pen and I go around the edge of the paper all the way around. There we go, and that gives this blooming magnet strong. That gives me a nice straight line to cut to, and then all I do is use my 9-inch grinder and cut to the line. Any good, these should fit in any position. Let's give it a go. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, excellent. Give myself 9 out of 10 points for that. making a gear that goes inside the wood gasifier. The gear raises and lowers the grate. I needed to find a piece of material for making this from, and I had a hunt around for what I'd got, and I found this. This is the floor plate out of an old forklift. I bought a forklift motor and it came with all the controls, and this will have been below the driver's feet, and the accelerator and stop pedals came up through these slots. It's quite a nice piece of steel plating, which is well worth rescuing, and that circle there is what I need to cut out for the gear. that part made. I've filed all the holes out by hand, and it's not as neat as it could be, but it doesn't need to be that neat. It's only a bit for a wood burner. There we are, so that's that bit. See, just get it zoomed in. Yeah. Right, time for the next piece. I'm just looking at the weather. It's currently horrible, and it starts to get better. So I think I'm going to go and do some design work on the computer till about then, and then I'm going to go and use the lathe while it's sunny, and then I'm going to come in for a cup of tea, and then do a bit more machining on the lathe. I'm in the battery shed, just doing a bit of design work, just doing the shaft for the Woodgas grate lifting thing. So I'm just going to change some of these dimensions. 12mm, 12.1, that's right. Make that 5/8 of an inch, so that would be 625 times 12.7, and that there is, you measure it, 16.75 divided by 2, that might be what it was. And then this is 66 plus 20 plus 25, there's 111. Right, there we go, and we'll come out of that and I'll make that into a shaft around the x-axis. There it is. I'll copy that and we'll put that into the assembly. Paste. And there's my little shaft down at the bottom. I'll move that up to about where it should be. Well, not about where it should be, exactly where it should be. That way around, please. And that wants to be coincident with that. Plonk. Redo that. And that shoulder there should be in contact with that. There we go. That's the shaft designed. Simple enough. I shall just copy that. I'll take those details into a drawing now and then go and make it. That's the pair of gears that I'm making. The cyan coloured one is the one I made yesterday, and the little white one is the one I need to make today. I'll put that. There we are. That's the complete gasifier. Well, not quite complete. It hasn't got its hopper on the top in this CAD model. And there's the whole assembly as far as I've got to so far. Right, I'll save all and go and make something. I'm going to have a look for a suitable piece of bar in my useful scrap pile. Let's see what we've got. Looks a little bit small. What's this? Oh, that's a piece of Morris Minor half shaft. That'll be as hard as hell, that will. Won't use that. Oh, what's this? Oh, that's my crowbar. Won't use that. This piece here. It's an old shaft with a keyway all the way along it. But I think if I machine it about in this area, I can avoid the keyway. I think that bit will do. I'll use that. Well, I've had a hunt round to see what I can make this little gear from, and I found this bit of scrap plate, and I've cut out a dodecahedron very roughly with a grinder, and then I need to turn that so it's completely circular and turn a bore in the centre so it goes on the shaft. The problem I've got is I can't hold it in the lathe on the outside, because if I do that I won't be able to turn the outside. And so what I've come up with is I found this in the scrap bin, and I'm going to put that centrally and then put some fairly feeble tack welds on it, and then I can hold this in the lathe, and I can turn the outside and I can drill through the middle, and they'll all be concentric, and then I can grind and break the welds off and clean it up, and then that'll be ready for putting the teeth on. And then this is the bit of shaft that I found in the shed. I've just roughly lopped it off with a grinder, so I'll hold it in the lathe to about here, and then I can turn one diameter and another diameter and then the long diameter, and then that will make the shaft. And last night I was welding up the gasifier body, so it's loads and loads and loads of welding. So making progress. I have three fairly feeble tack welds, and that will hold it in the lathe. This is the top section of the gasifier. So there's a fuel hopper in the top where the little wooden blocks go, and then the little blocks fall down the burn tube, and the burn tube is this tube here. And then there's a grate that sits just below this, so your gasification goes on at the bottom of this tube, and then the hot gases go up this gap around the burn tube and come up this riser on the outside, and this is the outlet. And then this bit here, all this lot will be insulated, so this will be really, really hot and preheating the wood that's inside. My son and I are experimenting with the wooden blocks. With no grate in place, the wooden blocks just fall straight through the tube. There's no problem. But if there's the grate in place, and the wooden blocks only fall through very slowly, like they would be doing if they were burning, they get stuck. I don't know whether we can see that, but they're stuck up inside that tube. So what we need is some sort of wriggling device. Our first wriggling bar was this piece of 1 by 1/4 inch flat strip. That seemed to be okay, but it seemed to want a bit more wriggle. So now we're trying a bit of 40mm by 6mm bar, and this goes the entire length right through to the end of the burn tube. We found that if you give this about 60 degrees of twist backwards and forwards, that helps everything fall down. The weather outside is atrocious again, so I've come in to do some work on the CAD system. This is the bottom of my wood gasifier. This is the main burn tube, and the white bit is the grate where the fire will sit on top of. I wanted the grate to be adjustable in height, so I came up with this idea. The grate's hung on 6 chains. 3 of them are attached to the body, and 3 of them are attached to this rotating ring, and that rotating ring is driven by this gear. So I've made all those parts outside, but I thought I'd show you its operation on the CAD. So when this gear is driven round, it will lift the grate up, and I can get the CAD to do that. As you can see, the chains pull across themselves. And that's the grate lifted up to its, so you can completely close it off. Go back down again. And that's at its lowest position. The grate itself is made out of flat sheet metal. This thing here, that's in my hand. But to cut this out with a grinder and drills and things would have taken quite a bit of effort. So I had it plasma cut. So what I've done is I've done a can bottle of it. So that's the exact thing that I want. And then I've asked the computer to show it as a flat template, which is this. So the computer just unfolds it for me. And fold it back up, and unfold it back up, and unfold it. And then you just ask for it to send a DXF file, and the guy with the plasma cutter used the DXF file to come up with a real one. It's time for me to go and fold it up now. This is the method I thought up for bending the grate. The internal dimension is 200 millimeters across the inside faces. So from this bolt to the inside face here is 100 millimeters. So all I've done is I've got two pieces of this rusty old box section and drilled a hole 100 millimeters from the end, and then I've ground a 3 millimeter radius around the corner, and that provides the radius that the parts get bent, the ends get bent round. So bolt it up tight with the bolt through the middle, and I'll put a clamp across here as well, and then I just smack it round with a hammer. It's pretty simple, really. Well, that's the grate welded up and its chains connected. I've also put the little spigot on the bottom, and that's for shaking the grate. Down inside the gasifier there's a little shaft that goes through, and it's got a little nodder on the end of it, and that shakes about up inside this boss, and that's for shaking the air out. So that'll sit down in there, hanging on the chains, and then the chains will be attached to this ring, and then as I turn the handle on the outside, then the grate will lift up and down. Now that's the grate fitted, only temporarily at the moment, just hung on these bits of wire. Up inside there is the gears that I made, and so I can stick the camera right inside. So they pull the chains around, and as the chains tighten against each other, the grate raises and lowers. So this tube here is the ignition port. So when I went to light the gasifier, put a flame or a piece of newspaper up the tube, and it comes through and into the burn tube, which is this big tube here. So that little tube pokes through there, and then the fire will be sitting on top of the grate down in here. I think the gap between the end of the fire tube and the grate is going to be quite critical to get the burning correct, so that's why I've come up with this raising and lowering mechanism. The reason I've brought everything through to the outside with shafts is so that I can put sprockets or gears on the outside and automate it in the future. This other shaft at the bottom here is the shaker, and that's to shake out ash or bits and pieces that might get stuck in the grate. That's the ash scraper for the bottom of the gasifier. The idea is that when I want to empty the ash out, I take this big bung off the bottom, and then I turn this handle that'll be hanging off the bottom of the gasifier, and inside it turns a scoop that scoops the ash round and down this hole. That's the gasifier complete. It's just loosely bolted together at the moment. It does need bolting together up properly with gaskets and lots of bolts and washers and a couple of bits adjusting. But it's a nice sunny day, so I thought I'd get it bolted together so I can do this little video. And I'll run through the parts. So the air is drawn up through this gap. This is just a little rain hat. So the air is drawn up through this gap, and it comes down inside the fire tube inside and down onto the grate, and then it turns the corner and comes back up the outside of this, and this is the outlet. Let me take the top off. This is the gasifier hopper. We'll have a stock of wood chunks in here, which will be fed down into the burn tube. I made this wriggler this morning to help the wood chunks drop down the burn tube. All it is just a piece of flat bar and a sort of a very crude universal joint, and that just allows it to swing and wriggle around inside the burn tube. If I come outside now, when the wood chunks are falling down onto the grate, I may want to adjust the height of the grate. So that's what this control here does. That's lifting and lowering the grate inside. And this here is the ignition port. So when I want to light it, I'll scrunch up some newspaper, pop it in the hole and set light to it, and that'll ignite the fuel inside. And this control at the bottom here, that's the grate shaker inside, and that shakes out the ash and any lumps of carbon from the grate. And then right underneath is the handle for clearing the ash out. These pieces here are just representing the thickness of all the gaskets that I haven't got in there at the moment. So the burn happens right down inside the gasifier, and then the carbon monoxide and hydrogen and all the gases come up inside this octagonal piece and then out of the outlet, and then they'll be going into the next thing, which will be the cyclone filter that'll be sitting on here. I've just been having a think, and I've moved the gasifier. I've moved it from its position in this corner to part way along on the frame. I've been thinking where to put the different components. So I think how it's going to work now is the gasifier will be in the position it's in now. The cyclone filter will be here, and a bit further along will be a fine filter, and then that will go along, and a condenser to condense the water out of the gas will be here somewhere, and then this section on the frame will be for heat transfer, so heat from the engine and heat from the condenser will be recovered, and then that's closest to the house to take the heat to the house. And then in this section here, this is where I'll have the electrical generators.